All right, so we don't need to of course everything's just gonna be left in editing, but
Okay.
let me see, frame the shot better. There we go. Okay, so thank you for sitting down with me. So, in terms of black masculinity, what would you say are like the main tenets of it? Like what really defines black masculinity?
That's a very interesting question. It's pretty much, and it's very loaded, but I think one of the main things with black masculinity, as with every other masculinity, is the idea of not being feminine. So the idea of being super manly or, super rah-rah kind of Tarzan-like thing. But the thing with black masculinity is that it's interesting because over the years, the blacks have been so emasculated, so black masculinity has become synonymous with hyper-masculinity. So, in terms of in the slave culture, and when black men were first introduced into the Western Hemisphere, obviously they were the black brutes, and they had these wild, uncontrollable sexual organs, and even today with hip hop, you have this super, misogynistic, super homophobic type of black males that we perceive in the media. So it has now become, not only are we manly, but we are hyper masculinized, and we have to be completely at odds with whatever is feminine.
Okay, and would you say the idea of the familial structure, would that also play into black masculinity?
Yes. So, I think when we look at a lot of black communities, especially here in sort of America, it's all built around sort of the church, that very close-knit religious background of Christianity, which is quite ironic because of slavery or whatever. But we are black people are very Christian. In fact, we're the most Christian demographic. And so, that with Christianity, obviously, you come with no homophobia, you need to be man, you need to take care of the wife and things like that. So it becomes everyone knows who you are and what you're doing, so you have to put on this big front, because if you don't, you risk excommunication.
Okay. So could you explain to me the basic idea of the down low as gay male performance?
Okay, so the down low is sort of, a lot of people like to equate it to the black closet. There are why that can be true, there are some problems with saying that. But the down low is basically a repressive sort of institution when you don't want to disclose your sexuality. So often, just like in the closet, so if you're a gay man and you don't want to be, you're in the closet. If you're a black gay man and you don't want to be, you're on the down low. However, whereas the closet, Eve Sedgwick says that it's open to everyone and everyone can have an individual closet. Dr. Aletha Smith, who works in sort of ethnic studies, says that is not the case for the down low, whereas the down low is only reserved for the most masculine of people, right? The black male that cannot be, you cannot be on your radar. So for me, as an openly gay, or even before I was a little flamboyant, I was feminine, I had a defined sense of style, I read GQ. I was never on the down, I could never be on the down low, because I could already be spotted potentially as being gay, whereas the down low is only for those that are masculine, and oftentimes the down low is for people who are in inner city or are underprivileged or impoverished, and so there becomes no escape.
Mm-hmm. So it's the main proprietor of the gays in this instance would it be the black community itself upon other blacks for the down low?
Can you rephrase the question?
Who's looking upon whom when it comes to the down low? Like a man who is in the down low, is it because he's being looked upon by other people in the black community, or is it just in general?
I think it's a combination of things, but I definitely think the main factor is in those underprivileged inner city areas, when we just talked about how important familial connection is, and how, sometimes overbearing that sort of Christian dogma is, that is connected to the community. It is the community, right? So we have to be on the down low, because there is no other option for, to be gay is to be, disloyal, is to be excommunicated, to be expatriated, from your immediate community. Yeah. Whereas, maybe if you're middle class or whatever, you're excommunicated, but, there's an oasis in San Francisco, or there's an oasis in Seattle. But in these type of communities, there is no escape.
I see. So, really formulate the next question. No, that's really crazy, because that's, I'm glad that all of my assumptions are lining up with yours, because I was thinking that all of those ideas, the idea of escapism and the vilification of homosexuality in the community. In terms of, so we've got, Okay, so for a man on the down low, do you know like how like the reasons why like a personal touch, like is it because of all of those things, or is it something more subconscious? Does it seem like the man on the down low is taking this because of very obvious, like, I know my family is going to excommunicate me, or is it also, I don't want to be this because it's not masculine?
Oh, yeah, because, and there's the funny thing with the down low. Like, in my paper, I say, shouldn't we praise the down low? Because aren't we all within our unalienable rights to, sexual fluidity?
Sure.
In terms of the Kinsey scale, no one's a 1, no one's a 6. So shouldn't we praise these men? But they're affected by what Adrian Rich would call compulsory heterosexuality, and that the down low men, they don't profess to be gay. Even in the bathhouses, New York Times wrote a brilliant article where a reporter went into the bathhouses, the down low, and even as they solicited for sex, it was, I wasn't gay. So these men, not only is it the defamation of homosexuality from the community, it's also a deep intrinsic battle with themselves, whereas, some of them actually believe that they're not gay. Right? So what is it, right? Although we detest labels and we don't want to put a label on you, but, repeated acts of any sexual act, you sort of become in that realm, and they're so psychologically imbalanced almost, where you just sort of believe that this isn't what I'm doing. I'm just sort of having a good time, and then I'm going back with my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, but you're so affected by compulsory heterosexuality, gay actually becomes something that's repulsive, and you're not that at all, although you're, doing these acts of homosexuality.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, especially in context of Rich, because that's essentially what she's talking about. So the men on the down low, there's a difference between being on the down low and being in the closet then, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is it a thing in the Black community to be in the closet?
Yeah, so, I think some of the main differences in there, and some people would say they're splitting hairs, but one main difference is the idea of language and the idea of, there's this thing called linguistic determinism, where, language supersedes thoughts. Yeah. So, although I'm thinking there's a green cat, if I don't have the language to say that's a green cat, does it really exist, right? So one could argue that it does, and one could argue that it doesn't. And so that's the problem with language. That's a whole different thing. But the thing about the down low is that the down low disguises itself through language. One, it acronymizes itself. Acronymizes. So, I made that word up in my essay, and I can't say it. But so they say the DL. So the DL could be anything. And then when you think about down low, keep it on the down low, a lot of people use that as to keep it on the hush-hush, in popular media or popular expression. That isn't necessarily tied with any sexual orientation.
Yeah, it already had meaning.
Yeah, whereas the closet, you're immediately there. Oh, he came out of the closet.
Yeah.
Eve Sedgwick says you can come out of the closet as a black person or as a fat person or whatever. That's true too, but when you hear the closet, you immediately think of someone's sexual orientation, whereas the down low, you do not, so it disguises itself in that. And so there's really no escape, whereas, I'm in the closet. The liberation, however, misconstrued, whatever that liberation is, the fact that the closet actually exists is a problem, but there is an out of the closet. There's no such thing as, if you're on the down low, the antithesis would be to be off the down low. Yeah. That popular phrase doesn't exist, because the moment you start divulging your sexuality as something other than heterosexual, you immediately become out of the closet, and you're not necessarily, you may have been, whitewashed or media washed or whatever. So,
and it's interesting because it all seems, it's exactly that, media wash. It all seems very determined by media and the gays, especially. It's very Foucaultian confessionalism, and it's very one of the artifacts I'm going to use with this is a show called the LA Complex.
Okay, yeah.
You've seen it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm using Cal's character and how his development as being on the down low was a result of being viewed, literally. So I think it's very interesting that before he got viewed, there was no determination, he wasn't on the down low. There wasn't any sort of word associated with his sexuality. He kissed Tarek, that happened, but there was nothing until there was this view, and I thought that was really interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm good. How much have I ever been recording? 10 minutes? Yeah, that should be more than enough footage. I only get 5 minutes to do this.